Dave, what we'll do just to give you some, or just to give this some structure, like we'll start from the beginning.
Okay.
Because my biggest thing with this channel, like I want to show guys how they coming from wherever it is, whether it's New York City, Nebraska, Oklahoma, upbringing, none of that matters, right?
Okay.
If you want to go to selection, you want to make something out of yourselves, like, hey, there's folks that's been there, that's done it. So starting off with where you come from, you mentioned that you're from Oakland. How's growing up in Oakland?
Bay Area, so so I say Oakland because a lot of people don't know Richmond, California. It goes Oakland, Berkeley, Richmond. That's where I'm from. It's a bad area. It's not the best. I grew up running the streets a lot, not going to school much, doing a bunch of stuff like that. And then luckily for me, when I got to high school, because I wasn't even really going to school much, when I got to high school, I started playing basketball, and I loved basketball. And I'll tell people, basketball saved my life, man. Like, I played basketball, and I wanted to play pro basketball. Didn't make it, but I wanted to play pro basketball. And for me, they said, hey, to play basketball, you got to have a 2.0, which meant I had to go to school. I had to go to class. And since I was in class, I might as well do the work. I never was stupid. I just didn't go to class. So then I started doing the work. I got good grades, played basketball, and then went to college in Silver City, New Mexico, Western New Mexico University, Division II for basketball.
Nice.
And after that, I joined the Army.
So you finished college, I take it?
I was almost done.
Okay.
I was almost done, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to make it to this pro thing. And I told you the only reason I'm going to school is to go pro. Yeah. So the hell with this. I'm going to the Army. I'm tired of school.
So what happened with your pro career? Were you not getting scouted, or did something happen to where you were like, man, this isn't going to work out? Or what? Yeah. I guess what made you change your mind from doing basketball and just saying, hey?
Okay. So I was playing in high school, and I was traveling, and I had played against guys like Drew Gooden and met Gilbert Arenas and all these dudes who became NBA players and all-stars and stuff. And throughout high school, I realized there was different levels. and I wasn't on that level. And here's the thing. If I would have been, like I told you, so my father when I grew up in Oakland during the crack epidemic. So my dad got hooked on crack. And I didn't have a father figure, and my grandfather kind of filled that role. So I'm a typical, I would say, not to be, but I'm a typical urban kid, and urban's a different way of saying it. I'm a typical urban kid raised by a single mom whose grandparents had to, we lived with my grandmother and grandfather who raised me. And my mom had me when she was 18, so she still was young doing her thing, and I guess drank a lot and was still trying to party because she had never lived that. So I grew up without really a father figure to be like, yo, I tell my son now, he's like, hey, I want to play basketball. And I'm like, listen, bruh, look, you going to be built like your dad. I'm 6'2", 235. Should have played football. And I'm like, I did a lot of work in basketball and practiced a lot of hours, and I still only went D2. So that tells you how much, hey, that gap was huge. And I could play with them, but I wasn't on that I wasn't on the pro level. And then when I went to Division II, I was playing there and everything, and I was like, I'm going to be honest, I'm a simple brain guy, man. I was sitting in my dorm room, and I was watching the movie Black Hawk Down, and I said, I'm going to go do that. Nice. And the next day I got up, walked down to the recruiter, was like, hey, I want to do that. And he was like, okay. And I was like, don't have to convince me. Don't need to talk about it. What do I need to do? And he told me, and I was like, hey, like I told you, my mom was young, so it was either I could have went overseas and played basketball, but it was either go home and play overseas and have to live with my mom. And I hadn't lived with my mom since I was 17. My mom lost her place when I was 17 years old. And like I said, I didn't have a father figure, so I kind of was out on my own since 17. So I was at 21, and I was like, look, man, I ain't lived with you since I was 17. You ain't gonna be putting rules on me now. I'm just gonna join the Army. And I joined the Army, and that's the rest is history, man.
But I think a lot of folks are gonna hear your story, and they're gonna see man, this dude's a freaking firefighter. He's an SF dude. He's a SWAT medic. And that's just gonna motivate them, you know what I mean, to hopefully walk the same path that you walked. But before we get into all that, let's take it all the way back to the beginning.
Okay.
And we got nothing but time.
23 years now.
Where'd you grow up?
So, born and raised in Miami. I originally lived in Opelika first, then Carroll City. Then I moved out west to Hialeah area. But my whole life has always been in the hood, you know. My mom always put us in summer programs. So, like, for me, I was on the swim team. My sister was a lifeguard. So I stayed at the swimming pool all day, every day, right? It was like a daytime daycare, you know. But I had a lot of fun when I was younger, you know, like it is in the hood. And I tell people, like, my upbringing, both of my parents were pastors. So I was raised in the church. So they kind of protected me from, you know, stuff that they didn't want me to see or listen to. And that kind of molded me somewhat to stay on the right path. It gave me the taste of not wanting to have that type of lifestyle. So that kind of helped out, but it didn't stop me from venturing and making mistakes, right? Because you get too much protection. You know, you slip out the back door, you steal a car, you're pushing it down the street, you jump in so they don't hear you crank up in the car type things. But my upbringing was not bad, but my home life, because my parents separated while I was in high school, I kind of lost focus and direction on what it was I needed to do to be successful or to have a family, you know, later on in the years. So, but Miami is, you know, drug capital to me. So I had a lot of friends that did drugs or dealt drugs, some living, some not, you know, and some in jail still to this day. And I was just fortunate enough that my mom stayed behind me and pushed me in the right direction, even though I didn't want to go sometimes.
And you mentioned something that's actually very important. Like, growing up around that area, your folks had you in extracurricular activities to keep you occupied, to keep you away from the streets.
Correct.
Right? And I think that's what's missing in a lot of these kids' lives, right? Mom and dad, some of them might not be together, but they're so busy working a 9 to 5 to put food on the table, like they don't have the time to actually, you know, parent. And that's detrimental.
It is. And, you know, us coming up in that area, because like I'm a 70s baby. You'd be outside playing kickball. Like, you could play street football. Like, there was always ride bicycles, go fishing. And today's kids, even my son, I'm like, yo, you got to get out the house. They'll sit in front of that video game and play Black Ops and whatever the other stuff they play, and they'll sit there for hours. And I'm like, you're not really exercising your brain. You're not being sociable. Like, eventually you're going to have to grow up and move out, because you ain't staying here. I'm not staying here. But the society, I feel like, has crippled us because of the advancements in technology. And that's just what it is. But the old school guys, we try to reinforce those things. Been deployed a lot, and like you said, I'm working as a firefighter paramedic. I'm a lieutenant. And being in the National Guard, you kind of become a jack of a lot of trades, a master of none, but you're good at a lot of stuff that most don't get a chance or the opportunity to do if you're active duty. And there's nothing against it, but that being said, there's a lot of benefits being in the National Guard. You get paid, you know, your salary while you're on orders. So now you have 2 salaries and 2 sources of income, which is not a bad thing, and you're building 2 retirements, which a lot of people don't talk about. So very blessed that I chose the path that I chose, and I could honestly say that going Special Forces kind of molded me to be that model person that people will want to hire, and people wanted to be around, and I was motivated. So
now, how did you get to that path, right? Because again, you grew up in Miami, folks kept you occupied, you grew up in the church. So at what point, like, did you go to college? Like, at what point did you decide?
Like, okay, so 2 of my uncles played in the NFL. One played for the Steelers, and one played for the Dolphins when they were undefeated back in the day. And so my aspiration was always to follow their footsteps, right? Everybody want to play football. Football is like a Florida thing and Texas, but in Miami, that stuff is big. So my aspirations was to play football, but when I started having home trouble, my grades dropped. So I didn't do, and I'm honest about it, I didn't do what I was supposed to do grades wise to be recruited. I was recruited, but I didn't go.
Yeah.
I ended up going to a JUCO for 2 years. I got my AA degree. And once I got my AA degree, I went to FIU, Florida International University, for a semester or two. But I didn't have the money to pay for school.
Yeah.
All right. Living with my mom, she's single. My dad's going, doing his thing. And she's like, son, I can't afford to pay for your college anymore. Like, you need to get a job. So now I'm working at night. I'm going to school. And it was, I was always a hard worker, so it was nothing for me. But still, it was a strain to work and go to school and not really have purpose or direction as leaders would give you because my father was no longer in the home.
And that happens a lot of time where if guys get promoted, they'll switch them from one battalion to another just to give them like a fresh look. But where did it all start for you? You said you're from Georgia. How was upbringing for you?
I grew up in a little small town, man. It's called Bainbridge, Georgia. So all my Bainbridge people out there, hey, got to send a shout out.
Yeah.
And Bainbridge is Southwest Georgia. And then you go even a little smaller than that. I grew up on a little farm in Cyrene, Georgia.
Yeah.
And we lived on Glenville Road. And basically it was just all Glens that lived on that road. And I grew up in a little small town, just a little country boy on a farm.
Yeah.
We had cows, horses, goats, chickens, just a small farm. And my father and my uncle, they grew peanuts, soybeans, corn, stuff like that. So I grew up just working in the fields, man. Just being a country boy.
Gotcha. How was upbringing? Growing up in a farm, did you have like structure, like as far as, hey, you wake up at 4 a.m, you have to do certain tasks before you go to school? Because I know with farm living, that's a thing.
Yeah, we had some structure, not really though, because my mom and dad, they really stressed, like education. So, but as far as like structure, man, during the summertime out of school, you're working, bro. And that sun come up, you're trying to get out there before it gets too hot. So you're up, whether you were baling hay, whether you were just doing, common chores around the house. But for the most part, man, you just get up throughout the day and whatever you had going on that day, that's what you did. So during the planting season, you're working hard, man, for that month or so. Yeah. Getting the soil ready, getting the dirt turned over and then planting. But once planting season's done, you kind of step back a little bit. Now you're working more on cows.
Gotcha.
We had a ton of hogs, so we were constantly cutting hogs and, castrating them, cutting them, cutting their tails, stamping them, putting them in feeding lots, getting them ready, for the market. So
Gotcha. Now, when we were talking earlier, you mentioned that you grew up playing sports. Was it high school, college?
Yeah, so
How was that?
I played pretty much every sport I could in high school because for me, that was the way to get out of work. Because in the sports season, you had to go to practice. Yeah. My dad loved sports, my mom loved sports, so I played football, basketball, baseball, kickball, tennis. Dude, if it was a ball, I played. I ran track one year, but track wasn't my thing. I was like, no, I don't know run it.
Gotcha.
So, well, other than that, man, I played all the sports, and then once I graduated, I wanted to go play, some sport in college, but I realized, family couldn't afford college, so I ended up joining the military, and I did play. The Fayetteville had that old Fayetteville Guard team. I'm not heard of. Yeah. They had a semi-pro football team, so I played probably one summer, not the whole summer with those guys. And what ended up happening was Sergeant Mason found out I was playing football. I was going to the Q course. He's like, "Hey man, you don't get paid to play football. You might get hurt." And he's like, "Hey, them pads, you need to go turn them in." So I went and turned them in that next day. And I was like, "All right, I'm done with this."
Yeah. What position did you play?
I played basically outside linebacker, or willing linebacker back in the day. Then a little bit of corner, a little bit of safety. So
I gotcha.
Anywhere I can go and hit somebody, man. You mean just run wide open, run into somebody? Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that you, instead of going to college, you decided to join the military. That seems to be like a common thing within, our culture, right? You can't afford college, so you either join the military or find another way.
Right.
So was that the main reason why you joined the military, or?
Yeah, kind of, sort of. Well, I started out. I will say when I was about 12, 13 years old, I remember we used to play, Cowboys and Indians. Everybody played it. And then I saw the movie Rambo. I saw the movie Rambo, man. I was like, man, I think I want to do that. Because I've always had a gun in my hand or in the woods or, hunting, fishing, something. And so my brother, well, he's my cousin, but I call him my brother Nathaniel, he joined the military first. And then our cousin Terry joined. My Uncle Nick was in the military. So I had a lot of family that had been in the military. Okay. But I remember my brother came home one time. He had a Nissan Sentra. I remember he came home and he took me out to eat or something. And I was like, man, this cat got money. He got a car. I was like, man, that's pretty cool right there. Yeah. So he kind of set that stage for me. He's like, hey, you can do this, you can do that, And then he actually got stationed at Fort Bragg. So my last year of high school after I graduated, I came up and stayed with him for a couple of months. And he was in the 82nd. I was like, you know what? I'm joining the military.
That's awesome.
And that's it, man. I just kind of
nice.
went in the military.
Now, did you and your mom and dad have that conversation initially, or did you make that decision yourself and just kind of went for it?
We didn't, man. I actually did the split out. I did the same. I've walked the same path my brother did.
Yeah.
He did a split out program where you go your junior year of high school to basic training, then you come back your senior year of high school and finish up AIT, and then you go, if you go regular Army or National Guard or whatever.
Yeah.
So I did the split out program. Didn't tell my parents, and I remember the recruiter, tall recruiter. I can't remember what his name was. He came by the house that morning. And dude, my dad was livid because my dad was like, "I want you to, go to college."
Yeah.
But I knew my parents couldn't afford it. But he would have done everything he could to try to figure it out. But I was like, "Nah, man, I think I'm gonna do this." And so I went and did the split out program. And I went to base training, came back with AIT, and then
And I think that's just a fatherly instinct to want the best for your kids, to want to protect them, right?